You know what has to be one of the worst feelings in the world? When you know you only have two options and both are incredibly shitty. You know, it's an awful feeling when the only two paths that you have are shit and shittier, and basically, you have to pick the lesser of two evils, because that's what Microsoft must be feeling right now with Project Scorpio. Oh man, even the YouTube auditor thinks they fucked themselves over with this decision. Now, let me just be clear on this. This is not a rant. This is not me hating on Scorpio or anything like that. This is not about taunting Microsoft or making fun of the people who are going to be buying the console. This is just a look at Microsoft's bad decision that they're stuck with when it comes to Scorpio. And look, I know the name is not Scorpio. That's the name of the project. It might end up being something different, whatever the fuck it is. They still have to name this motherfucker. But for now, until they make it official, we're going to call this motherfucker Scorpio. Now, if anyone has paid attention in the past year, you know that Microsoft is rolling out an upgraded version of Xbox One or Xbox Uno, whatever you want to call this shit. Fucking Xbox 1.5 or Xbox Uno Mas. Who gives a fuck? It's a powerful fucking console. They really outdid themselves when it comes to the horsepower that they got under the hood, man. They went from being like a Mustang to a goddamn NASCAR, if you want to make a pretty decent comparison, and they really jacked up the quality of the insides. There is no question this is a stronger machine than the PlayStation 4 Pro, and certainly Switch, obviously. And yes, PC fanboys, I know you can upgrade your shit at any time for like another $1,000 onto your gaming ring to play pirated games or more League of Legends. I don't give a fuck about you guys, I'll just be honest with you. But Microsoft knew they had to do something after Xbox One's ass kicking by the PlayStation 4. I don't give a fuck what fanboys want to argue at this point. Xbox One got fucking trounced, kicked in the fucking head type beating, and because Microsoft is so embarrassed by how far they are behind in console sales, they won't even release them anymore. Retailer reports give you an idea of how many they've sold, and estimates are that PlayStation 4 has actually quadrupled in sales. It's bad. It's not Nintendo Wii U bad, but it's bad enough that they're far behind. So, they did something. They came up with Project Scorpio. They're advertising this as the most powerful console to date, which is true. They added features on the console that PlayStation 4 Pro does not have. That's also true. The problem is, that's not going to turn around this console generation. Certainly not significantly. You know, I'll get into more on that in a second. But here is the problem that they have. What do you price this sucker at? What do you come up with as a cost that's going to make this an enticing machine while still being competitive with PlayStation at this point? If you look at all the components that they actually put into this machine, I mean, I'm just talking raw material alone. Analysts figure that they made significant investments into this, which is good. You know that it's a quality machine this time around where the fan won't break down like Xbox 360. Now you add in your production cost to create this puppy, you add in the financials and the video game analysts and what they think it's going to cost, and they're saying it's about $700 minimum to make the console, and that's on the low end. We're just talking the raw materials of what they're actually putting in the console. It might end up being around $800 by the time people actually get to work with this machine and fully deconstruct that motherfucker. But Microsoft is going to want to make some of that money back. So, what do you price it at? How much of that $700 do you get back at retail? Because remember, most consoles at their launch actually sell for a little bit of a loss. PlayStation 3 famously was losing $300 to $400 each sale, and they were hoping to make that up with video game sales, which they certainly did over the course of their lifetime, but it took a very long fucking time. Microsoft doesn't have that luxury this time around. They need to sell, and they need to sell fast. So you figure $499 is probably the best guess. Let's say a $200 loss is probably reasonable at this point if the hardware production is around the $700 as people are predicting. And if that's the case, that's where Microsoft probably realizes right now that they kind of made a couple of mistakes. Here's the problems that they face. For starters, PlayStation 4 Pro is already $399. They could certainly roll out Scorpio at $399, take a little bit of more of a loss on the hardware to stay competitive, so they'll obviously need to make up for that in software sales. They can put this on the market at the same exact price and advertise it as the stronger machine, backwards compatible, 4K Blu-ray player, all at the same price of PlayStation 4 Pro, only to have Sony turn around and drop the price of their console. No matter what move Microsoft makes on price, Sony has significant advantages. By announcing Scorpio well over a year ago, well in advance of actually releasing the console, you gave Sony, and Nintendo for that matter, the chance to price out the market first. They gave Sony a fucking gift by announcing this console so far in advance. Even knowing Scorpio is the more powerful machine with better features, Sony had a full year of PlayStation 4 Pro sales to flood the market. Sony had a year to ramp down production costs and step up sales figures with the release of quality games and exclusives. So when Scorpio hits the market, it's certainly going to sell well. I have no question about that. I can see a lot of people buying this machine the first month it comes out. But at the same time, Sony can sit back and say, you know what? How about we launch a $399 bundle with Horizon Zero Dawn or Nier Automata? Or fuck it, both. How about we drop the price of PlayStation 4 Pro to $349? They're already going to have a Destiny bundle. They already have a Call of Duty bundle around the holidays since they're sucking off that Activision teeth right now. So before the console is even released, Microsoft has already backed themselves into a corner on price, and they really don't have a decent way out right now. They can price it above the PlayStation 4 Pro to make it look like a premium model, letting Sony maintain their price advantage, or they can price it the same, and then you lose more money per console sale, only to have Sony drop the price on them in the future. They're in a no-win position right now when it comes to price. Another problem they face, and it's something that I just mentioned, games. Loyal customers, fanboys, you know, they're going to buy your console no matter what. Nintendo fans bought the Switch no matter what. Sony fans bought the PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 4 Pro no matter what, even though there really wasn't a fucking point of buying that shit. Microsoft will hope their fans buy Scorpio no matter what, and they're going to do so. But the people that you really need to buy your console are the ones who are undecided. Think of it like an election. Far-leaning liberals or conservatives will never vote across party lines. That's just not out of the question. They're always going to vote for their candidate. They're so far up a politician's ass that if a politician farts, it'll be coming out of their mouths. Video gamers are like that too. They're going to buy their console and they're not going to change. Who Microsoft needs to appeal this to are the people who didn't buy Xbox One. People who left Xbox to buy PlayStation 4, people who left to PC, people who are not buying games right now. And what entices people to buy your console other than features? Big name games. Nintendo Switch had a solid launch because Zelda was released in their launch window, and easily that's going to win a whole bunch of Game of the Year awards in this motherfucker. PlayStation 4 Pro didn't need a big name game because the regular PlayStation 4 has already had a substantial sales lead. The console was just going to enhance existing games that people were already playing and improve on the ones that weren't coming out yet. Fucking Horizon Zero Dawn, Final Fantasy, these are two of the most visually stunning games that you will find on 4K. Destiny 2 looks pretty damn good in 4K, I must say that, so that's another game that looks like it's going to be enhanced. But look, Xbox is behind in sales. Even if every Xbox One owner went out, bought a Scorpio, they would still be behind PlayStation 4 in sales by a lot, not a little, by a lot. Just enhancing existing games isn't going to get players to move over to Scorpio just because it has great features. You need a big name game. You need something to push sales figures. With E3 coming, Microsoft needs a big name surprise to be on stage and say this is going to be available the day Scorpio comes out. Whether they rush out a Halo game, you know, obviously they haven't released a Halo game in less than 2 years of development. So I highly doubt Halo 6 would be the massively rushed product. I don't think it's coming out right now. Otherwise, they might have a spin-off game for Halo. But otherwise, don't expect to see Halo 6 coming out right now. They're not going to rush it in less than 3 years. They've never done that to the series before. Gears of War isn't coming because number 4 just came out in 2016. Forza will obviously be released since that's become an annual series. But that's not a game that makes people move consoles, man. Crackdown 3 is coming, but again, that's not a big title that moves numbers. Maybe a Sunset Overdrive sequel would be nice, but that wasn't a major seller when it came out. Maybe pay for another Tomb Raider game if they wanted. Maybe rely on their partnerships with EA for something exclusive, but EA won't give them a sports game exclusively like Madden or FIFA. That shit ain't happening. Activision is obviously in Sony's pocket, so those who want to play Call of Duty or Destiny's time content, they're just going to stick with Sony in this bitch. But that brings me to my next point. Multi-platform games. Regardless of how powerful the console is, most games are not going to make two significantly different versions of a game just to accommodate Scorpio. Not happening. Most of them just create the same quality game and they dumb it down to the lesser console. So if PlayStation 4 Pro isn't exactly as powerful as Scorpio, developers will just want to make sure that it can run on PlayStation 4 Pro. Matter of fact, the console that they have to dumb it down to most is actually Xbox One. So Xbox Scorpio is going to suffer because of the original Xbox One being the least powerful console out of all of them. I'm not going to get into all that bullshit, man. Basically, they're not going to be able to take advantage of Scorpio's power. Activision Studios certainly aren't going to do that because, again, Sony money. Oh man, imagine that. Imagine buying Destiny on the PlayStation 4 and you get all this exclusive content for 1 year. However, the Scorpio version has the 60 frame rates per second gameplay. That's not happening. So regardless of the strength of Scorpio, The only advantage it's going to get with multi-platform games are probably a couple of better loading times. That's really it. Now, the final problem that Microsoft is going to have with Scorpio is essentially timing. As crazy as this sounds, do you guys realize this console generation is pretty much halfway over? I mean, think about that for a second. We're approaching the halfway point to these consoles, and while we're getting these improved consoles midway through their lifespan, in just a couple of years, chances are all three consoles are going to start considering their next project. You know, by 2020, these consoles are going to be 7 years old. So you have to figure that we're going to hear a number of rumblings that new consoles are coming. When that happens, when the rumors actually start, console sales really slow down. Anytime the rumors really start circulating that something's new, exciting, stronger, faster, better is coming on with a fucking K-pop girl ready to give you a blowjob. Oh man, that gets people's shit's attention, doesn't it? So, when those rumors start, people stop buying what could be outdated shit. Scorpio is coming in at what you would have to consider the halfway point of this console generation. Regardless of what Phil Spencer says about how long this generation is going to last, or the Scorpio is going to be around for years to come, reality is, when Sony gets the itch to make a stronger console, when fans want more features, faster consoles, this generation will come to an end. All you have to do is look at the console's history to see how long they last before the next generation comes out. And while people may point to the Pro and Scorpio as like a mini generation and shit, it's not a full leap to a new platform, so let's get that shit out the way. That being said, Scorpio only has about 2 to 3 years to make up in decent sales. That's a very short time to put a big dent in the market. So let's recap this for a second. Scorpio is a powerful machine, and people are certainly going to buy it and enjoy it, and they're certainly going to experience the performance over Xbox Uno, but that power comes at a production cost for Microsoft. They have to make that up in a few ways, either at the price register when you buy your machine or through video games and software, and regardless of the price, Sony can still lower the price of their consoles knowing they have such a wide lead in sales. Sony already had a head start with the Pro for over a year, and now Microsoft is playing catch up in the 4K market. They need a top-notch game to release the console, so E3 is their chance to make a splash with a big-name game. Without a big-name game, without some kind of surprise, Sony still has God of War, they still have The Last of Us 2, they still have that Spider-Man game from Insomniac, they have the Uncharted DLC coming in August, so they still have a couple things in the pipeline. So when you look at Scorpio, and you combine their price and their cost model, their future gaming schedule with the limited years before the next consoles start ramping up, this is not a good mix for Scorpio. I have no doubt it's going to sell well upon launch. It's going to sell out of stock, probably beating Sony for a good 3 to 4 months in sales figures just because it's brand new. It's going to make for great headlines for Microsoft, but it's not going to put a major dent in Sony's sales. It's safe to say Microsoft learned their lesson when it came to this console generation. And they took their lumps. Don't get me wrong. They took a lot of lumps from this shit. From the bad decisions with the Xbox One at launch that they needed to reverse and all that shit, to the mistakes that they're making with Scorpio now, I can all but guarantee Phil Spencer is not going to sit back and let this happen during the next console generation. You know, they got their asses handed to them right now. Nobody can argue that at this point. But they're going to be better prepared to fight when PlayStation 5 comes out, whenever the hell that's going to come out in the future, say 2 or 3, 4 or 5 years down the road. It's just unfortunate that right now, they're taking this shit on the chin until they can finally get their shit together. So I'm sure Scorpio is going to be a massively powerful machine and make a ton of sales, but I'll tell you right now, it is not going to put a dent in the market that Sony has already created. Anyways, E3 is just around the corner. I'm not going to do any predictions, but obviously, I'll watch the motherfucker, and then I'll tear into all the companies once they fuck up on stage. So as always, rate, comment, subscribe, and other good shit, and I'll see you guys in the next video.